Harrowing images depicting the rampant drug addiction that has blighted thousands of Afghan families after years of conflict and the resurgence of the Taliban have emerged, in what is a stark reminder of the turmoil faced by the nation's long-suffering citizens. A sea of people strung out on heroin, opium and meth were pictured strewn over a hillside overlooking Kabul, some scraping by in makeshift tents with many more simply lying in the dirt. Hordes of dogs are seen skulking around to share in the drugs, with bodies of overdosed humans and hounds often found sprawled amid the stinking rubbish. Drug addiction has long been a problem in Afghanistan, the world's biggest producer of opium and heroin and now a major source of meth, but spiraling poverty and decades of war have turned millions more to drugs in recent years. Since the total collapse of the country's economy following the seizure of power by the Taliban in August last year and the subsequent halt of international financing, families that were once able to get by have found their livelihoods cut off, leaving many barely able to afford food. As a result, more and more people each day turn to drugs to escape their crushing problems, and the capital Kabul is now infested with addicts living in parks and sewage drains, under bridges and on open hillsides. A 2015 survey by the UN estimated that up to 2.3 million people had used drugs that year, which would have amounted to around 5% of the population at the time. Now 7 years later, the number is not known but it is believed to have increased dramatically, according to the head of the Drug Demand Reduction Department, Dr. Zamal, who like many Afghans uses only one name. The Taliban, who seized power nearly a year ago, have launched an aggressive campaign to eradicate poppy cultivation. At the same time, they inherited the ousted, internationally backed government's policy of rounding up addicts and forcing them into camps. On 2 nights earlier this summer, Taliban fighters stormed 2 areas where addicts gather in Kabul, one on a hillside and another under a bridge. In total, they collected some 1,500 people, according to officials in charge of registering them. They were herded into trucks and cars and taken to the Avicenna Medical Hospital for drug treatment, a former U.S. military base that in 2016 was converted into a drug treatment center and the biggest of a number of addict treatment camps around Kabul. There, the addicts were shaved and kept in barracks for 45 days. They receive no treatment or medication as they go through withdrawal. Since the Taliban seizure of power, the international funding on which the Afghan government relied has been cut off, so the camp barely has enough funding to feed its inmate patients. But the camps do little to break addiction. A week after the raids, AP reporter Ibrahim Norouzi went back to both locations and said both were once again full of hundreds of people. At one notorious drug hangout on the hill, a man was seen picking his way through the crowds of whacked-out Afghans by torchlight. He was searching for his brother, who became addicted years ago and left home. He goes from site to site, through Kabul's netherworld. "I hope one day I can find him," he said. Meanwhile, at the site under the bridge, one man in his 30s named Nazar seemed to be respected among his fellow addicts, breaking up fights among them and negotiating disputes. He said most of his days are spent under the bridge but goes to his house every once in a while. Addiction has spread throughout his family. "It's normal," Nazar said when asked how the drug hangouts filled up so quickly after thousands of people were rounded up by the Taliban just weeks earlier. "Every day, they become more and more. It never ends." When the addicts die, either from overdoses, hunger or exposure to the elements living in the dirt, they do so unceremoniously. Sometimes fellow addicts or family members will hastily bury them, others are just carted off and left to rot or be eaten by the dogs. As Nourouzi picked his way through the crowd, taking pictures and speaking to the addicts, he was told one body lying next to him had died hours earlier. "There's a dead man next to you," one of the addicts told him. "We buried someone over there earlier," another said further down. Another man lay face down in the dirt, unmoving and barely clinging to life. "You're dying," Nourouzi told him. "Try to survive." "It's fine," the addict croaked. "It's okay to die." Nourouzi said he bent down to give the exhausted man some water, after which another addict passed him a glass pipe filled with smoke. The man, whose name was Dawood, choked on the pipe and was seemingly imbued with some more energy. He told Nourouzi he had lost a leg to a mine about a decade ago during the war. After that he couldn't work, his life fell apart and he turned to drugs to escape. It is a story shared by untold numbers of Afghans whose country and livelihoods have been left in ruin.